Welcome, guys. Back with a stream. I haven't done one in a few weeks. I've had some people ask for it. We're finally getting to the point. By the way, let me know what the audio sounds like. Going full setup right here. Tell me how the camera looks. Either way, today we'll be doing a breakdown of three main topics. If you guys missed the full video or the full stream, I guess it should be stated. They will be clipped into three individual videos. First, we'll be talking the 5 best off seasons, in my opinion, while the other 2 videos will be, or things we'll be discussing in the stream that will be clipped into videos, is the 5 best off seasons, the 15, 20, 30 or so best summer league players using my work, hoopshype.com, global ratings, and finally, the third, power rankings. I think that'll be exciting, but I digress. And let me know, again, what do you guys think of the setup? Is it in focus? Does it look in focus? Right now, it does look in focus. Again, I'm in the process of moving into an actual office, so we are mobile. It's kind of thrown a lot of projects I'm working on into a whirl, one mainly with the touchback that I feel so bad. Cheyenne, if you hear this, plan is have this done in the next few days. I literally just have to put the B-roll and then just film my parts and put it in, and we're done. Either way, you guys don't want to hear me ramble. I'm thankful for anyone who does join us today, as I think what we'll discuss holistically is going to be more so talking about how this is going to look into the season. What other moves could these teams do? And what is the overall feeling, I think, coming from the fan base and just what people, the expectations. So, ooh, wow. Shout out Grant. Why is that top left here? That display should, oh, you gotta love it. We're gonna pause this, or we're gonna change cameras real quickly. Don't know where the display is there, but shout out my boy Grant Money Mona. Is it Mona or Mona? It's Mona, right? Either way, let's just switch this to here, as you guys are now getting a upper looking view. Thank God I'm live, but I don't really care in that sense. I'm going to put this microphone to the side. But what we're going to do, actually, I'm just going to mute myself, guys. Give me 1 second. And we should be back. Alrighty. Let me just, looks like it's still in focus. Now we're out of focus. There we go. Should be perfect now. There we go. Thank you. That actually works out perfect. And shout out Grant right here. Grant does great coverage for the Clippers. Is a great photographer, cinematographer, I guess you would say. He does really good highlight clips. And when we were in Vegas, he actually gave me some pointers about, I guess you would say, just like taking advantage of my camera in ways that I knew, but like I didn't really see like utilized, in the sense of taking action shots and then uploading it to Twitter, and like the way that he was doing it, which I now for Miami Heat games, I'm going to be copying. So shout out him for teaching me that. And let's go ahead and get into what we wanted to discuss. And that was the first topic, the 5 off seasons. So with that being said, what do we believe, or who do I believe had the best 5 off seasons this year? Now, I think it was pretty evident. And I had a bigger list. I ran this by my colleague Sam Yip as well as Michael Weisenberg. Basically wanted to get the overall opinion of everybody I knew. And that was, who did they think? And everyone thought 12 teams was too many. I sent them 10, and they still thought that was too many. So what I ended up coming with were these 5 teams. And I just want to pull up the honorable mentions that I put together because they were Memphis and Milwaukee. I thought Memphis and Milwaukee, for what they had available, they did the best work that they could around the margins. And to me, I thought that was snaps worthy if we're going to go Legally Blonde style. It was worthy of snaps. Miles Turner, hate it or love it, the waving of Damian Lillard, all that, they were able to finagle moves that I personally was not thinking or did not think was going to be possible. The same could be said with the Memphis Grizzlies. I mean, you don't turn down 4 picks for Desmond Bane. You were able to build back up some depth. And I personally like the idea of committee approach, replacing those Desmond Bane minutes with Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Cam Spencer, Jalen Wells, and Cedric Howard being, and I know people are a bit frightened with Cedric Howard's injury, as it is a torn labrum and partially torn rotator cuff, and he's yet to be cleared from my understanding. That's why he wasn't playing in Summer League. But I thought those were the 2 teams that were worthy of being honorable mentions. Those would have been my 6 or 7. I think I was trying to argue that they should be tied for 5th, but people were like, that's still too many. And I think that's the one that, hey, they do deserve snaps. So before we go, I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think of my 5 teams? In this specific order, these are the 5 best off seasons. And if you've been watching the channel for a while now, I have said repeatedly that I believe that Cam Johnson was the perfect Michael Porter Jr. replacement. Like when they won the title, I said this repeatedly. I was like, it really just feels like you could have just traded Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson and gotten a similar production. I've said this for years. And the fact that that happened is, honestly, I love the Jonas Valanciunas edition. I was at this point saying like they should just bring in Vasilija Micic. I would have loved that. And I think they've set themselves, Ben Tenzer, the new, I guess, president, you would say, or general manager of the Denver Nuggets, has done a really good job there. I think they put together a really good squad. Jamal Murray, Christian Brown. They have themselves now a legit backup in Jonas Valanciunas, Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic, as well as it seems like a Monte Morris or maybe a Corey Joseph ends up coming back. I think is going to be very, very interesting to see that all come together. So I'm impressed with what the Nuggets have been able to do. The Atlanta Hawks, they are able to put together Kristaps Porzingis. They have Onyeka Okongwu. They have themselves now just a very solid team, top to bottom. We're going to go through the whole thing, but I like how they kind of push the chips to the table without mortgaging the future, while seeing if they can really go to the next level with Trae Young. Ansi Saul has done a really good job there. The Clippers are the 3rd team. Yeah, it might be a retirement home, but basically replace Norman Powell with Bradley Beal for a fraction of the cost, and you're expecting similar production, if not maybe a little bit, like not as high scoring because he is a little bit older. But this might be one of the best Clipper squads they've had in years. Houston, I think they took a valid swing with Kevin Durant, and there's such a deep team, especially now that they have Josh Okogie. And then Orlando, they're trying to see if they're good, if they have the ability to go to that next step. So let's go through it and let's talk about the Denver Nuggets. Going to be the first team. As we mentioned earlier, Jamal Murray. I love them bringing back Bruce Brown. They also have Curtis Jones, who I think is going to be one of those two-way guys who's ended up going to be a lot better than people were expected. You have yourself Christian Brown, Julian Strawther, who I think is going to take a step forward. Spencer Jones is on a 2-way. I do like Jalen Pickett. He's a great 3rd-string guard right there, and especially I know he's at shooting guard, but you probably flip Bruce Brown and Jalen Pickett. I don't know why I had it like that. Either way, what I do believe is bringing in a Monte Morris to be the 3rd-string or even a Corey Joseph, that be chef's kiss on top, perfect veteran to have right there. And as we look for the rest of the roster, as I mentioned earlier, Tim Hardaway Jr. was someone that I didn't mention, but him being behind Cam Johnson, playing this kind of six-man role, green light, come in, and if they actually let Hunter Tyson shoot the ball, he's another great shooter who can help out, Julian Strawther. One of the biggest things for me right now is Payne Watson is obviously the guy. We don't know if they're going to extend. Will they use him as a trade chip? That could potentially be the case if October passes and he's not extended. Do expect Christian Brown to be extended. He is a huge part of this team. Aaron Gordon, still there, rocking it out. Yes, the future of the power forward position could be questionable, but that's why you might keep Payne Watson and believe that he could be the guy who replaces Aaron Gordon eventually. Zeke Nnaji's still a bad contract, but hey, maybe Mr. David Aldman is... Did I say David Aldman? Coach Adelman. But it's Adelman, right? Adelman. And also David Adelman is his father. So right now, why am I blanking on Adelman's? Either way, Coach Adelman, we're just going to go with Coach Adelman, has Nikola Jokic, De'Ron Holmes, who I absolutely love. And he moved well for being a guy coming off of a torn Achilles. Like, pretty solid. And then you have Jonas Valanciunas, who would be a starting center on a lot of other teams. And yeah, it's David Adelman. It's David Adelman. Right? Yeah, it's David Adelman. His father was Rick Adelman. Yes. God. Just very basic white people name. That's the problem right there. Now, moving forward, what do I think about this team? I think they've put themselves in a good financial situation. They're not like handcuffed to any of the aprons. They have a little bit of a cushion. And they know that they're going to have to be giving Nikola Jokic an extension. So I think they have the flexibility to make some trades still this season while being able to take on the deal in the future. Now, they do have the non-taxpayer mid-level exception from my understanding and the biannual exception. And the way that now they have, my apology, I did not mean to make that go back, but the way that it looks like is that they are ready to make another move. Maybe they don't have the assets to convince, and that's why I think Payne Watson is somebody, but they are able to sign another decent player. Who may that be? I don't know. I think we're all waiting for a lot of dominoes still to fall in terms of the restricted free agents, Cam Thomas, Josh Giddey, and Quentin Grimes. But just from a trade exception standpoint, $7 million, you throw in Zeke Nnaji, that's like potentially $15 million you could be trading for of an expiring salary that might be useful. And I think the biggest thing is that they address the shooting. I think my biggest question is the forward position. I think if they can get a combo, a Dean Wade would be perfect. If they can get Dean Wade, I think that would really round out the bench, in my opinion. My dog is also like so asleep that she's doing like the leg jitter. So we're going to go forward to the Atlanta Hawks. I absolutely love this. Trae Young, Vit Krejci, who is a great Swiss Army. Kobe Buffkin, if he can stay healthy, he's only played 27 games in 2 seasons. They brought back Keaton Wallace. Dyson Daniels, defensive guy. Nikhil Alexander-Walker, 2 guys that I bumped into, like maybe blacked out drunk in Vegas a week or so ago that I'm so embarrassed about. But Nikola Drusic, and of course, Zachary Richese, Luke Kennard, Jacob Toppin, Caleb Houston. Caleb Houston is a bomber. If you look at his stats, dude, this guy like takes 3 shots a game, 2.8 of them are like threes. And he's a really 6'8". This is a low risk, like potential, not like breakout, but a guy could be a bigger contributor than Luke Kennard, 40% shooter who can also be a secondary facilitator at times. Richese is a combo forward that I love. Jalen Johnson looks fantastic. By the way, 43% Asa Newell shot from 3 this summer league, and he also did it on almost 3 attempts a night. Then they have Kristaps Porzingis and Onyeka Okongwu. Also, Eli Nadi, who looks like they're going to have on a 2-way. Not that bad, baby. And then Mo Gay, baby. Give me some Mo of that any day. That was cheesy. So with that being said, I just think this team has a lot of length. The shortest dude in any lineup with Trae Young is going to be potentially 6'4" or 6'5". Like, it's going to be Trae Young or Kobe Buffkin being the shortest guy on the floor, if that's the backup point guard, or Vit Krejci, who's like 6'8" almost. They are basically 6'5" and above team at all times. This is a long team that can play both ends of the floor, and that's got me excited. Now, they got room, baby. And that's because Tony Wrestler ain't going to spend a penny on the luxury. Don't expect that. I think they've spent 1 year the luxury tax. So, and they do have like the largest gap. If they wanted to do anything, they still have room to go out and make a bigger move. Also, don't expect a Porzingis extension, and maybe even not a Mr. Trae Young extension till next offseason, because I think they want to see what this team can do. And if it can do something, then they know it's worth keeping together. And basically the reason why Onsi Sala became the general manager in all this is, he gained the trust of the team over the last year since Landry Fields. I don't know if Landry Fields specifically brought him on, but had brought him on to be under him as the assistant general manager. And it's not, Landry is a bright guy and a nice guy. And I think he'll have a job in another office and maybe get a chance at it again. But he was still green behind the ears. And I think we all can agree that they were at a point with Mr. Trae Young being extension eligible and being the best passing point guard in the league and the best passer since Steve Nash, and arguably him and Jokic are the two best passers in the NBA, as well as Jalen Johnson looking like an all-star, potential all-NBA player, and a lot of like pieces, Dyson Daniels. This team could like actually take the next step. And from what I've spoken with people, is that they just needed somebody who had done that before, and Landry Fields had not done that before. And even though Onsi Sala had not done that himself, he had been with organizations that had done that before, specifically the Warriors most recently. And that's kind of the reason why they moved into a situation where they could do. So what I think the biggest thing is that they have themselves the ability also to still make moves if necessary, with Bogdanovic's trade exception being there that they could use. They can also use the Clint Capella. The whole Cody Zeller situation last year was wild. I completely forgot like that he just was there and then they had to like dump him. But that's like actually a really good situation that I like. The Atlanta Hawks being one of those teams that could surprise and be actually a contender this year and one of the better teams in the league. Now, the retirement home in the Los Angeles Clippers, I need to do the research, but they might arguably be one of the oldest teams in the NBA. But John Collins next to Zubats, I love that. And the fact that Zubats can sit and they can have a John Collins, Kawhi Leonard, Nick Batum, Bradley Beal, James Harden lineup, or Chris Paul, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Bradley Beal, John Collins, whatever iteration you want. The fact that they just have Brook Lopez, Yannick Niederhauser, Zubats, as well as Derek Jones, John Collins. By the way, Patrick Baldwin might become the light-skinned Steve Novak, and I want to stand by that. I want everybody to know that like is potentially going to happen, and if that does happen, I am so stoked for it, and I'm here for it. He just can't play defense, and just don't expect him to. But the fact that this guy can shoot the three-point ball the way that he can and shoot it over anybody might keep him in the NBA. Now, John Collins, switch big, has every tools to be a great power forward and has shown it could be a 20-10 guy. If he can just average like 15 and 10 for this team and shoot like 37% from three and be able to guard inside, outside, be a weak side rim protector and a small ball five, it's perfect. Tyronn Lue will actually maybe like prematurely ejaculate in his pants, but we don't know. Now, Nick Batum, Kawhi Leonard, Chris Dunn, and Bradley Beal being kind of like the wing rotation. They're running Batum and Kawhi more as like combo forwards, and then Bradley Beal and Chris Dunn will purely be twos, maybe in the small ball wings. Chris Dunn, I love that he's just going to be a Swiss Army knife. And Bradley Beal, people forget he's a great shooter still, and they don't need him to be the guy or to do what Norman Powell did last year. They just need him to score, play with, Chris Paul, James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi, and John Collins. And all of those guys together can replace the scoring and the production that they had in Norman Powell, and then just the Swiss Army knife. And I think Grant just said it best here. The Clippers can literally use so many different combinations: small ball, double big, standard positional five, or they could literally go even super crazy small, where maybe a Derek Jones or a Nick Batum or even a Kawhi, if they don't want Collins or Zubats to play the center, and then run legit a guy like Derek Jones or Nick Batum at the five. Then you have Kawhi. Then you have yourself. And I'm assuming Bogdanovich is the trade chip eventually. Like, if they're going to trade anybody, it's going to be Bogdanovich. And still have Chris Paul. And the fact that, by the way, that Yannick Niederhauser and Brook Lopez are here is huge, because I love me some Zubats. Zubats was probably the third best center, if not the fifth best center in the NBA. And last year, and he was completely beat up by the time the playoffs came off. No offense to Drew Eubanks, they didn't really have a backup last year. So to me, getting a guy like Brook Lopez, say what you want, just having someone who can come in and just alleviate minutes and spread the floor and give you a different look, and then also having Niederhauser and John Collins, great way to do it. And to do it all with like contracts that you can get out of, that's snaps worthy, in my opinion, because it just makes it a lot. And yeah, Grant just said Bogdan will probably be flipped for size at the deadline, tradable contract, and they have a lot of guards. I hope Jordan Miller comes back. Yeah, I think the biggest thing right here is Bogdan maybe just flip for a contract that they can waive, and then that they can convert some of their young guys that they really like, or they go after, as you said, somebody that's, expiring. And I really think if they went for size, it would be for another combo forward or like a wing. Dean Wade was a guy that I said earlier, and I think a lot of teams, like a team like right here in the Clippers, would really like Dean Wade. So to me, that's one that I think people would be interested in seeing. Now, we move on to what they have. They are at the luxury. I think they're basically $1 million under the first. I think they might be pushing it, and they are a repeater in the tax. The whole thing is moving off of that Bogdan contract will make everything better, and that's why Bogdan will do. And also, what role will CP3 play? CP3, it was already said from Lawrence Frank yesterday that he will be playing a reserve role, and I don't think trading Powell is a mistake. Like, personally, I think it's more so they weren't going to pay him what he wanted. They turned Powell into Bradley Beal and John Collins, arguably, and Chris Paul. And Chris Paul is a backup point guard who he could start on other teams, but the way it's going to work is James is the point guard, but then Chris Paul is going to be the sixth man. I think in ways they're going to have multiple six mans, but Tyronn Lue's probably going to play a smaller lineup. It's just, yes, this is an older team, but the fact that they have so many options allows them to be, I think, even deadlier than that you wouldn't normally think. So let's go ahead and move to the rest of this. All right, so I went over they still have PJ Tucker and Bones Highland. They're probably going to want to use one of those quickly. And that's where you think, do you go after an Anthony Simons or something like that if you still need some scoring? Because you could theoretically package maybe a Bogdan. And I think it's still too much money, but there's options out there that maybe you do find an expiring contract that you try to put together. So let's go over the Houston Rockets. I feel like this one's talked a lot about, but the Kevin Durant swing, I think, was a good one. The fact that you have Fred VanVleet, Aaron Holiday, and Reed Shepherd as your guard rotation, then now you have Josh Okogie and Dorian Finney-Smith as your two pit bulls. You have also Tari Eason and Amen Thompson as the two main pit bulls. So you have four guys who can be lockdown defenders with Kevin Durant and Jabari Smith and Alperen Sengun, Clint Capella and Steven Adams as your center depth, Jeff Green, Tari Eason, and Jabari Smith power forward. You have Jayshawn Tate and Dorian Finney-Smith, Josh Okogie behind Kevin Durant. Amen Thompson, if he takes the jump that we're all expecting, is going to be phenomenal. Probably an all-star, maybe a defensive player of the year candidate. The Fred VanVleet brings the grit that they need. This is just a complete team that you have your primary scorer in Kevin Durant. You have Alperen Sengun and Fred VanVleet and hopefully Amen Thompson as your secondary creators, all just splitting that there. Shagun's baby Jokic, okay? Shagun's baby Jokic and a better defender that you think. And the other thing is that there's just so many guys that if someone gets hurt, they have the same guy replacing him. They have multiple options. And basically everything we talked about with the Clippers just now, the Rockets have that, but probably younger guys. The only difference is maybe some of them are a little bit not tested, but like this is the best team that Kevin Durant's been on since the Golden State Warriors. That's straight up. And I think they're a legit top 2 seed. Now, and they still have money and they still have room. That's the crazy thing. Yeah, they're like a little bit over the apron, but they're probably going to move somebody and do something about that. And they still have room for the extensions that are going to have to come up and ways to pivot and be able to do salary cap gymnastics. And to them, I think the biggest thing now is probably moving whatever contract they move next is arguably going to be somebody that they don't expect to pay or don't expect to play. So that could be anybody. Some people might think that's Tari Eason. I think they would want to keep Tari. I think they're going to figure out a way to keep money keep the players that they want and keep money open because they're building something that seems sustainable. Orlando, they wanted to take the swing, and they took the swing. Those picks, if the swing goes right, and regardless if they don't win a championship, they're expecting to have those picks to be 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, you know? So having now Jalen Suggs, Tyus Jones, and Anthony Black, you have three guys that have all proven they can play. You have who can all do different things. Anthony Black being the best passer, arguably, and like maybe could be a breakout star. Jalen Suggs being like the modern day prime Drew Holiday potentially. And then Tyus Jones, a turnover, like efficient sharpshooter who is a spot starter or elite backup point guard. Desmond Bane, one of the best shooters on the planet. Jace Richardson, who could be a steal. Jet Howard, who's, could be something. Maybe. Still haven't seen it, but he's a shooter. Franz Wagner, we saw him play really well before the injury, and then it all cratered in terms of shooting. But he could be one of the top players at his position. Noah Penda had flashes. Jonathan Isaac, still one of the best defenders. Wendell Carter, when healthy, very efficient double-double guy. Mo Wagner, great sixth man. Gogo Batazde. And then, of course, Paulo Banchero, who has MVP potential. They really put together a complete squad that has different looks, can play big, can play, you just against any lineup. The whole thing is, can they shoot the ball? They haven't been able to lately. And they still have room in terms of their money. They can still make moves to get somebody better or, save cap to go re-sign their guys. And they can go out and use their exceptions still. And I think the ability that they can go and splurge on somebody or wait to use it in the season is huge. And that's something that people need to keep an eye out for. So those were my 5 teams. We had Denver, Atlanta, the Clippers. We also had ourselves the last 2 teams, the Houston Rockets, the Orlando Magic, with 2 honorable mentions being the Memphis Grizzlies and the Milwaukee Bucks, who I thought did a really good job of working around the margins. So if you guys made it to this part, I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. So now, as we go ahead and we talk about the next part, which I do think if we look at the league holistically, is it wide open, as some people say? I think so. But it all comes down to, are you making the right moves? Are you putting yourselves in position to take a swing? And I think a lot of teams have. So right here, what we're going to have right in front of us is basically a little slideshow of the best teams, in my opinion. So I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you guys think are the best teams? So we're going to go all 30 teams, the contenders, the dark horse contenders, and basically everyone in between. Now, also the play-in teams at best, or they're tanking teams, going to be the ones at the bottom. So just there for a little bit of context. Now, let's go ahead and talk about it. So tier 1, these are going to be the contenders, and this is all based on roster, off-season moves, and their playoff potential. And I know everybody is probably already thinking Cavs, Thunder. There's different ways that I was viewing this. So I think we'll go through it. I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. I know this is being clipped from the stream, so if you're watching the stream, I'll add your thoughts. And yes, the top couple teams are the obvious ones: the Thunder, the Knicks, the Cavs, the Nuggets, and the Timberwolves. I think we do need to be admitting that they have there. Now, I put Nikola Topic in there because I really like Topic. I thought he did well, but I think it is more of a point. So we have OKC as the number 1 in the top contenders category. Look, they just won a championship. They also are a team that, in my opinion, every year they have another young guy who's going to step up. And this year it's going to be Topic, in my opinion. And what is their biggest weakness at this point? Somebody blowing their Achilles. Knock on wood. I don't want that to happen, but that is the biggest thing that could really hold them back from having the success that we expect them to have. And Topic is someone who can play the 1, 2, and 3, and that's why I think he could be the breakout guy. If it's not Topic, it's somehow Ousmane Dieng if they keep him. I also think Sorber is going to impress people because he's going to be the Isaiah Hartenstein replacement. And I kept telling our boy Nick Crane that I think Sorber is going to be their pick. And he thought Derek Queen. I was like, dude, Sorber just like he's such a good screener. He's so big that if any team wants him, they're going to go after him. So, by the way, we're going to go through the contenders a little quicker than the other ones just because I feel like they're obvious. Now, the Knicks are the next one. I don't know. I think 1 is obvious. I think 2 through 5 or whatever, these rest of the contenders, they're all in the same field because they all have their flaws. The Knicks have everything you want. OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges as defenders. You have Deuce McBride, another one. Josh Hart. You have Mitchell Robinson. And then on top of that, you have your 2 scoring guys in Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. You brought in Darshani Abusele, who I love. Good interview. Check that one out. It's in a playlist. Go to my channel. Either way. Then you have yourself Mr. Jordan Clarkson who came in. And I thought that was cool. That was cool. You got scoring. And I know it's another guy, but like you don't have to put the pressure all there. But the team's depth is better than it was a year ago. The Cavaliers, they traded Ty Jerome out basically or swapped him out with Lonzo Ball. And this is a team that they didn't really lose much. I think if anything, they got better defensively. They got more reliable depth. And I think they're committing to what they need. Now, could they still get another wing or do something where I personally think, like, if you could flip Darius Garland for an Anthony Simons and a George Niang, I wouldn't be too mad about that. That's kind of what I'm saying. Look, the Timberwolves have continued to get to the same spot that they've been in the few years with different iterations of their team. The biggest question is replacing Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which in itself is going to be huge. But I think Leonard Miller, Josh Minott, Josh Minott's gone, but Leonard Miller, Terrence Shannon, Rob Dillingham, like they've drafted all these guys over the last few years for this moment to happen. And I think Terrence Shannon's one of the guys that we know is going to happen. Cam Johnson, Jonas Valanciunas, we talked about this earlier. I think Tim Hardaway Jr. is a solid one, even though like the playoff performances in the past haven't been great. This team is better than it has been in years. I think their coach, Adelman's great. I think Ben Tenzer's being good with his flexibility. Just having someone to be able to play those minutes when Jokic comes off the floor is going to be huge and something that they've needed. Now, to me, I think the Nuggets are probably number 2 if we had to choose. So the next ones are potential contenders. These guys are guys who I think they could be just as good as all the teams we just listed above, but they might have a bigger flaw or bigger questions and not as many ways to improve and maybe not as good players. So I think the Rockets are on the cusp. I really think it all comes down to, I think Şengün's fine. I really think Şengün's baby Jokic. I think Kevin Durant's fine. I think Fred VanVleet. It's Amen Thompson, Tari Eason, and the rest of the guys, Dorian Finney-Smith, Josh Okogie. If they all like perform and take the steps that we need them to, especially the younger guys, then that's cool. Then this team's a contender and everything. And if they can stay healthy, and mainly Durant, can he stay healthy? The Clippers, they're just old, and that's the whole thing is this could all work out, or they could just be the same team that they were last year, that they were really good defensively. They had some questions shooting the ball, and like their offense would stagnate, and then they kind of get burnt out by the playoffs because of their age. Or they could have like a bunch of different ways to make it and be one of the best teams in the league that they arguably should be. Orlando, again, they took the swing to be good, and everything hinges on Paul Banchero becoming an MVP candidate or like an All-NBA player that's just like a Donovan Mitchell level type, Evan Mobley type player, maybe better. And Franz Wagner being a shooter, this team just shooting in general, and then like the young guys taking the steps and then just being healthy. Just healthy is a huge thing. A lot of these teams, it's health. The dark horse contenders, they could be as good as any of the teams listed above, but it hinges on young guys and additions taking the next steps, either coaching changes or whatever it may be. By the way, the Knicks, yes, I know they brought in Mike Brown, and I think Mike Brown's actually a better coach than Tom Thibodeau. That's just my personal opinion. Golden State, can this team be healthy? Can Curry be healthy? Can Butler be healthy? Can Green be healthy? Everyone's talking about the Clippers being the old team. They should talk about the fact that the Warriors if one thing goes wrong for the Warriors, their season's over. And also, B-Pod needs to take a step forward. And a lot of these other young guys are expected to take step forwards. Will they take step forwards? We don't know, and we hope that they will, but those are the big questions. I like Detroit. I think the Jaden Ivey situation could get weird if they expect it to continue going the way it was. It's worth it. Do you pay him? Is it worth paying him? Same thing what's going on with Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, that front court. There's a few questions for me there. But I think the Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert deals were like worthy, and they're not locked into that money. So they took swings and they didn't pay to stay with the same guys that they had last year, Malik Beasley and Dennis Schroeder and Tim Hardaway Jr., which I think in turn could actually like benefit them a lot better than people would initially expect. The Lakers, they got Luka Doncic help. DeAndre Ayton, Marcus Smart, that's huge. Now, I just think defensively they got worse. I think it's a really big gamble. Dorian Finney-Smith being replaced by Marcus Smart. Like, how couldn't you get Josh Okogie? How did the Rockets also get Josh Okogie? You should have gotten Josh Okogie too. That one makes no sense to me. Milwaukee, they did what they could. I didn't expect them to get Miles Turner, but the fact that they got themselves Miles Turner, I think, is huge and puts them in a position to at least be decent, at least to try to do something. They could actually be a lot better. They put themselves in a position where they don't have a guard. Maybe they go after Corey Joseph or Monte Morris. Those are like the only two guards. I mean, Markelle Fultz too. Markelle Fultz was on the Kings last year. It wasn't great, and he had like a knee problem that kept him out most of the year, but he's somebody. The Hawks, I have them personally higher, but I felt like that would be bias. If it all goes well, they could be a top 5 team in the league. Porzingis, Jalen Johnson, Zachary Risache, Dyson Daniels, Trae Young. That's a pretty good starting 5. And then they still got like a Onyeka Okongwu. They still got themselves Mr. I'm like blanking on the roster now, but it's pissing me off that I'm blanking on the roster, and we literally just had it in front of us, so we're not even. Vit Krejci. They also have Kobe Buffkin. They also have themselves, I'm envisioning this roster in my head, Luke Kennard that they brought in, and Assay Newell. I'm remembering it. So Mo Gay. So to me, like, I think they've done a good job of putting together a team. Memphis. I actually like the committee approach of replacing Desmond Bane with hopefully Cedric Howard's healthy, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Cam Spencer, and Jalen Wells. I know Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. being not healthy potentially to start the season isn't great, or start training camp. I think the team's deeper than it has been in years past, and that they could do some damage. Now, I also love that Tomas Isalo coached the Summer League team. I thought that was cool. Indy. They don't have Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, TJ McConnell did great. I think they need to trade for somebody, or they do need to bring back Thomas Bryant, because right now it's Isaiah Jackson and Enrique Freeman, I think. And also they signed, who else? It's like not pretty. They're like, I think Tony Bradley's still there. I know they signed one other guy that wasn't like a phenomenal signing or like standout signing in terms of their backup big position. So it's not the end of the world, but there's room to be left desired there. Boston, I like Anthony Simons in the minivan joining there. They lost a lot of guys. I think it's a gap year and a financial reset for them, so it's fine. I mean, they could be better than you think. The Sixers, Joel Embiid and Paul George's situation health-wise just scare me. I do like VJ Edgecombe, Quentin Grimes, Jordan McCain, Jerry McCain, and Tyrese Maxey. Like, they all make me fair. Like, I think it's all like fair, and I actually like do like that team if they're healthy, but it's such a big if that you're just sitting there and you're like, Miami. This is another team that could be better than we all expect, and it all can come together and like be great. They don't have a point guard, and I think that's one of their biggest problems, that they haven't had a point guard in a while. So to me, if they're able to figure that position out, then it all could be figured rather seamlessly, and they could be one of the better teams shooting wise, scoring wise, and creation. If Tyler Hero and Norman Powell and everybody can delegate that together. I think losing Kyle Anderson sucks, but they don't really have a second unit, and I don't know what's going to happen with Terry Rozier, and they weren't playing him really, but Who knows? Again, they could be way better than you think. They got Cooper Flagg to Dallas Mavericks. That's awesome. But is it enough? Are they going to be winners? Kyrie being out, that's just, I don't know if he's going to play. I think he's just going to sit out the whole year, to be honest. Derek Lively might not be as durable as we hoped. And Anthony Davis, durability is a question mark whenever talking about him. So the fragility of this team is really the one that's the biggest question mark here. And I don't like that Cooper Flagg, who I think is a 4, is playing the 3. I don't think that's his natural position. I think he's going to struggle as a result. The Spurs, another squad that could be way better. They're in the dark horse contender status because they could be contenders. Everything could swing out right. Victor Wembanyama becomes an MVP. They have De'Aaron Fox, Steph Castle. They have Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes, Jeremy Stoham. They have everything you would want. And they drafted Dylan Harper and Carter Bryant. They look great. Or they could be a young team that's still figuring it out. Now, this is playing at best. They're not tanking. Or they are. So let's get right into this one. Sacramento, baby. I love Nick Clifford. And the reason why he didn't go to a bigger school, I mean, even though he's playing Colorado, which is a big school to begin with, but didn't transfer from there to like a basketball powerhouse, was, I believe, family reasons. But the team's depth in general is the big question mark. And then, of course, the team defensively and not having a point guard, even though Devin Carter looked pretty solid out there. And so did Isaac Jones. They have Keon Ellis. But DeMar DeRozan, DeMontis Sabonis, Zach LaVine. They're basically the Chicago Bulls that turned into the Sacramento Kings that are now the Washington Wizards of like 3 years ago of the West. Building from mediocrity. Like that works. Look, Chicago adding Isaac Okoro allows them to potentially move off of Mr. Patrick Williams a little bit easier, and I really like them keeping Trey Jones. We're expecting Josh Giddey to come back. How much is that going to be? Who knows? But I do also, by the way, Sacramento did sign Dennis Schroeder. I just still, like, the team is so hodgepodge that I just don't really think it's one to be like, oh, stoked for. Chicago, like another team that, like, there's a lot of guards on this team. There's not much defense. There's a lot of players who are clearly not going to be on this roster long term. So do they make a big move, or do they start to tear it down or build around Josh Giddey? Toronto, they could be decent. They just have so many random pieces. Brandon Ingram, Emmanuel Quickley, Scotty Barnes, who I love, Grady Dick, Ochai Agbaji, Jakob Poeltl. I feel like I'm missing some. RJ Barrett. The guy they drafted last year out of Baylor, Jacoby Walters, who they didn't necessarily want, but like they didn't expect him to be there, and they got him. They have Jamal Shed, Jonathan Magbo, Ulrich Chamachi, who could be decent. It's just like a weird team. And now Masai Ujiri's gone. Portland Trailblazers. Hassan Yang's a little overrated, but like he could be really good. He could be decent. He could also be Dwayne Dedman. Now, I think the next thing is are they going to get rid of Robert Williams? Tamani Kamara, Denny Avdia, Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp, eventually Damian Lillard. They have Drew Holiday. Like, it's a decent team. Dupe Reith, like, it's fun. I think it could be better in a year or two. Phoenix, Kaman Mawach, Mark Williams, Jalen Green. They don't have a point guard. Unless Colin Calypso is just going to shock the world and be like, come into the area. But, I mean, they're another team that it's like you're a playing team. Maybe the 60 at best if Jordan Ott's that good of a coach and they shock everyone with this roster construction. Also, Brian Gregory, their GM, is like 5'6". That's a lie. He's like 5'8". But he's a very small man. I've walked by him twice now. Now, these teams are going to suck. Okay, by the way, I could put the Pelicans in the latter category or the former category with them being a play-in if they're not taking. But this team just took on money. I don't know what's going on with Troy Weavers and Joe Dumars. It's already been a rough start. I'm sorry, Zion. Just keep eating those beignets, baby, and keep watching Mariah Mills in your free time. They'll all be fine. It'll all be fine, and then you'll wake up from this dream. Charlotte, they're just trying to set a good culture and maybe eventually trade LaMelo Ball. They just want guys who are going to show up and work and not smoke pot all day. And I love pot. I'm like not fully explaining what's going on there, but it's just like they're trying to bring more mature characters and like culture setters. And I think they're going to build around Brandon Miller. Utah, I really don't know what's going on there. Will Hardy probably doesn't know what's going on there. They also have a team that actually is a little bit more functional. They have a guard and Walter Clay in. Keontae George is probably going to move to the bench. Like, they have some pieces that it all comes together. Like Bryce or Brees. I think it's Bryce. Sensabaugh, Lowry Markkanen, Walker Kessler. Like, there's pieces there. It all could work. It's just, do they want to win? Next year's draft class is pretty decent. Following one, So this could be the last year that they would want to tank. And the Washington Wizards. Hey, Trey Johnson, Cam Whitmore, Keyshawn George, Bub Carrington, Alex Sarr, baby. We're going to watch you all the time. Ain't going to be any rim protection outside of Alex Sarr. But when Alex Sarr ain't in there, we better have some preparation H, because there's going to be a hole, and it's going to hurt. Pause. Hard pause. So that was that. Slideshow ended. What do you guys think? I think that was like basically my whole thoughts on the power rankings. So let's move over to my Summer League standouts, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you if you're rocking with us. Summer League standouts are actually going to be way quicker. I do actually have to like run in a sec. So let's go ahead and get into Summer League standouts. Who were some of my favorite players? We're not going to like sit here and talk about everybody because that would just be ostentatious and not what I would want to do right now. So let's go ahead and discuss who are some guys that stood out to me. And obviously, we got to talk Isaac Jones, a guy who, when I interviewed him at the NBA Draft Combine, he literally told me his employer had to like force him to go and try out. Also, why did this display? I just realized that this whole time we had these lines, and I don't know how long ago that it started, but it recently just came to my attention that the grid was showing. And I'm so upset now that the grid was showing, and I thought it was actually my OBS showing that. So I apologize that I had grid lines on me this entire time. Either way, Isaac Jones, when I interviewed him at the Combine, not this, about 2 years now, a year ago, he actually told me like, oh, you know, he had been playing basketball for like less than 5 years. He had gone like at work, and his boss basically was like, dude, like, why aren't you playing basketball? Great guy. He can play small ball 5. He's a forward, jump out the gym athleticism. He's got a 3-point shot. He plays with energy, moves well, freak athlete. Really like him. Now, next up, David Jones Garcia for the Spurs. Great scorer from the Dominican Republic. He played DePaul, Memphis. And I'm blanking on the third one, but DePaul and Memphis was where he played. He can be a great player in transition, has a little bit of shot creation ability, really fun guy, and got himself a two-way opportunity with the San Antonio Spurs, which I think was awesome. Next up, Jordan Miller. He's a guy who's a roster crunch for the Clippers. I think they're going to bring him back, but he's a guy who can play the 2 or the 3. He's one of the best players out there, someone that people were wondering why he had even been put in this position, and he was still playing with the Clippers, so clearly there seems to be some goodwill there, but somebody who's too good for a two-way, but because of the roster crunch, if he doesn't get poached by somebody, he's probably going back to the Clippers, and they'll probably, by the end of the year, hook our boy up. Enrique Freeman, he was someone that I thought they might not bring back, but man, he came out here, showed his rebounding ability, showed that he was a dog, that he is deserving of this two-way, and put himself back into position for the Pacers to keep him. And hey, they have a hole at the center position, so why not? Javon Freeman Liberty, he's somebody who's not going to stay, I think, in the NBA. He can score at all 3 levels. He's a elite EuroLeague player, bottom of the bench NBA player, but he is an NBA caliber player that if there were 32 NBA teams, he would probably be like a 12th or 10th guy in a rotation, but just because of the way that the NBA goes. Naquan Tomlin has been playing basketball, I believe, less than Isaac Jones, and he's a freak athlete who has gotten better, can do everything. Got some like Pascal Siakam in him that like I think he is one of the most exciting guys that to watch, and is a phenomenal player. So to me, he's somebody that if you have not put on your radar, Naquan Tomlin for the Cavs is going to be somebody that I think in a few years is going to help. Charlotte Hornets, Jalen Sims, hopefully they give him a two-way. He's been with the Greenboro Swarms for the last few years. He's a swingman. He's more of a big two. He can play the three. Kind of a little bit of Kemp Bazemore in his game, but he's been a guy who's rocked with the franchise for a few years now, and I think they've really come to love him. I think he played for UNC Wilmington or UNC Greensboro, but so I'm very deserving of an NBA contract. KJ Simpson on a two-way for the Hornets. He's an absolute dog. If he was 6'3", 6'4", he'd be a starting point guard, one of the better players. Guy who averaged in, I think the G, 25 and 5. Phenomenal player, good defender. It's literally because he's 6 foot that people don't think he's serious or don't give him serious. Nick Clifford, you've probably been watching him. He's been absolutely killing it whenever given the opportunity, and he did that all through Summer League and showing people that he should be higher on your radars. Now, moving forward, AJ Lawson, another guy who's probably, if he goes overseas, going to be one of the best players in Europe. He's just been really just caught on the bubble of the roster. Hopefully the Raptors bring in. He was with the Dallas Mavericks most recently, but another deserving. Brooks Heiser was someone that I didn't think was going to be able to do this. Dude, I saw this guy bounce passing, playing like he was from the 1970s, hitting shots, facilitating, grabbing rebounds, defending, looking like the best second-round pick out there, like he's going to be a contributor in year one for an NBA champion team. Phenomenal. Devin Carter, was plagued with that shoulder injury all year, and then now, my God, looking like Derek White. That's who I thought he could be coming out. I thought he's a guy who had a lot of skill, someone that I thought was a lot of fun, and to me, my finger snaps over here, ladies and gentlemen. The way that he's played, the ways that he's been able to put himself in position to really, really, really help a squad that at the end of the day, their biggest question has been point guard. I know they have Dennis Schroeder, and I know our boy DOG or Dog was saying that Russell Westbrook is going to come, or that they should sign him. We also made a video on that. Devin Carter could be a reason the Kings are better than we expect. So that's one thing. Dennis Jenkins, I met him 2 years ago at Portsmouth. One of the best players at Portsmouth. Detroit put him on a two-way last year. He was a guy that we didn't know if they're going to bring back in on a two-way. Boy, did he ball out. He's a facilitator. He'll grab rebounds. He can create. He'll defend. Yeah, he's like 6'1". He's like 6'3". He's like an inch or two taller than me. And he's a guy who's going to be a solid point guard in the NBA, and especially if they give him an opportunity. Now, Tolu Smith, if this will change, I don't know if it will. Yeah, there we go. Tolu Smith, a teammate of his. He got jacked, another Portsmouth guy. He's gotten huge. He was probably more built like a 4, but because he understood the assignment in the G, he got ripped, and he's like a 6'10", long-armed, nimble, screen-setting, lob threat, rim-running big man that can block shots from the weak side. I really like him. He's got a lot of skill, and he's going to be someone that will make it to the NBA because of that. Terrence Shannon, he was bombing it. He looked phenomenal out there. Curtis Jones, dude, Iowa State, legit bombing threes at Portsmouth. Kind of quieter during the G League Elite camp, but came out for Denver and absolutely killed. They got himself a two-way. Ryan Kalkbrenner was drafted by the Charlotte Hornets, showed what he could do. Yeah, the stats don't pop out. Another guy, Chris Youngblood from Portsmouth, killed it, earned himself an opportunity this summer league. And then the Thunder, he was one of the better players for the Thunder with Brooks Barnheiser, which is fantastic. I love this guy. He's 6'4", out of Alabama. Leonard Miller, every year he's been able to put it together a little bit more efficient. The guy's 6'10", could play either forward position. Maybe down the road could be a small ball 5. That's what you want to see. Asa Newell, this guy shot almost 43% on 3 attempts from 3, looking like he can actually play the 4 or 5 position, and that's been the big question for him. Moves well too. Cody Williams, people thought he was a bust. People said it was one of the worst rookie years of all time. He actually looked pretty good. He looked pretty dominant at times. He actually looked like his game had grew, and he put some size. Hey, Cam Christie, is he following his brother's footsteps? Max Christie, efficient 3-and-D guy, got some size. Chris Manning, didn't really watch much of his game until Summer League, and he really surprised me and got himself a two-way. Ron Holland. Detroit's balling out in summer league. Their guys showed up, did what they needed to do, and a large part, Ron Holland looking like the young Gerald Wallace out there. Con Knipple, shooting, showing people that he was worth being a top 5 pick. Judah Mintz put himself back on the radar for the Sixers. Had a good game where he could play defense, run the pick and roll, grab rebounds, score, do a little bit of everything. Tristan Enaruna was a guy who played for Kansas, then went to Iowa State, and then ended up at Cleveland State. Dude, this guy's one of the best mid-range shooters I've seen in a while, especially from the free throw line. He's going to be someone who probably end up in the NBA because he's got size. The man from Holland, right? Dutch is a 6'9", like, solid shooter. James Bouknight, I thought he had retired or something, but he put himself back in the NBA spotlight, and that was huge for himself. And then Kobe Buffkin, I know he played a few games and it wasn't super efficient, but if he can continue to play and affect the game in a myriad way, then I think he'll have a way to stay in the NBA, and I think that's huge. Cole Swider, another 6'9" shooter who's unbelievable at that, and that's something that keep him in the NBA or make him one of the best players in Europe. AJ Mitchell, he's going to kill it for the Thunder this year. They got a great player in him. Jalen Tyson looking like young Josh Hart out there. Cooper Flag had some good moments. I have my questions for him. And VJ Edgecombe is going to be great. So, yeah, that was it. So, what'd you guys think? God, I was thirsty. That's it. I got a dip. Yeah, I got a dip. So, see if I can stop by my office real quick. Kogan and DeSalvo. Yeah, I got time. I basically will show up to my office for 2 seconds and dip.